Imagine coming home after a long day of work, feeling tired and knowing that your day isn't over because you now have to shift into mom mode and wishing you would get home and not have to worry about dinner or the kids because your husband would have taken care of that. But as you walk into the house, reality hits, right? Your husband is shut away in his home office or in a room on his computer, working on the side business he is busy building for the family. You sense a tinge of resentment and maybe anger as you sigh and take a deep breath, doing the best you can to put on that mom and wife's face so you don't show your frustration. You do a good job. Basically, doing the best you can, hanging and pretending and acting and be okay, right? Because you want to make sure that that frustration doesn't somehow shows. So you're hiding it. But inside, it's another story. You feel sad, lonely, and frustrated, but you're doing your best because you know the family is depending on you. And so what do? You whisper a silent prayer asking God for his help because you don't want to let what's happening inside of you get outside. And here's the thing, you're doing your best because a part of you know that your husband is busy focusing on building, as you've explained and you've talked to him about this, building this side business for financial freedom and maybe location freedom at one day that you guys are able to live where you choose to and not feel like you have to stay in one place and not feel like you have to count every dollar and make sure it adds up. Not that you want to be careless, right? You want to still be a good steward of God, what God has blessed you with. But at the same time, you don't want to have to feel like you have to scringe and, keep on making sure everything is just on budget. And again, not that you want to be careless, but at the same time, having that extra is always helpful. And your husband is working steadily on that. He's been doing that for some time, and you've been patient. You have been doing the best you can to support him, but it comes a time where you start feeling neglected, feeling unsupported, feeling even lonely, feeling like you are a single parent and you're trying to do your best to hold it in. The emotional toll, though, is taking place and maybe impacting the marriage because maybe you're feeling distance from your husband. There's a distance there. You feel disconnected and you're trying your best to somehow communicate to him. And he's trying to understand. He's doing his best to understand. And he also feels guilty. It's not that he is there somehow not considering what you're going through. He is, but at the same time, he knows. And so he feels like he is caught between a rock and a hard place because the guilt, the stress, the pressure, the long hours, the sacrifice. And again, he knows that he needs to be there for you. He knows that you need him to be there to help you with the kids. He knows that. And the moments he sees or hears that you are somehow, showing some um any kind of indication that things are not going well, it really, I can tell you from experience, he feels that. Because why do I know this? I'm like your husband. to some degree. Maybe I'm a bit ahead of him or where he's at. And I know because here it is. I have been married as of this recording almost 40 years, 39 years plus. So I can tell you that from experience, I've had moments like that where in the early stages where I was so busy, 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 busy. My wife would tell you this. And my busyness was really well intentioned. It's not that I just don't want to, I didn't want to, you know, do a part, be there and be present with her as the kids were growing up. Yes. But sometimes I get, I cannot tell you how many times I feel the stress. As a matter of fact, I believe that part of my own health issues that I experienced is a result of a combination of things, the stress of my work, but also the pressure and knowing that I needed to be a dad and a husband. It's really a lot. So I feel that. But here it's also what I have done working with couples for almost 2 decades as a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach. I've listened to the stories of wives like you sharing their heart and the pain. And I've listened to the husband as he also sits there and trying to do his best to support and agree and acknowledge what his wife is going through. But inside of him, he feels so guilty and feels like, you know, he wanted to throw in a towel and just go about as everybody else does. But he is on a mission. He feels that he owes this to you as a wife. He feels the least he can do for all the things you've done is to provide adequately, where you can choose if you want it to work or not. He wants to provide that. And again, I'm speaking from my own experience. So I can imagine your husband. And so what do you do? Because I think it's not that your needs should be set aside and ignored because dear husband, your wife do need these things. Again, how do I know that? Because my wife has also communicated many times to me that very thing in different ways. I cannot recall a time where she tried to add to my guilt that I felt or pressure me or, that's what I think God really, really gave me someone who truly was able to put up or is able to put up with the things he's put on my heart. And I'm so thankful. I thank God every day because I know of many, many relationships, having worked closely with many, what it's like. And I can tell you, at the end of my day, sometimes I say, Lord, thank you. Thank you. Because it's not easy. It's not easy for you as a wife, and it's not easy for your husband. And I know you understand that, and you've done your best and still do. But at the same time, you are feeling what you're feeling. It's real. It's not like you're making this up because you too are doing your work. And maybe you're working outside of the home, or if you're not, you're still working at home. And the pressure, the stress, the demands of the children, and just the house in general, and keep everything scheduled and trying to keep everybody up to date on what's happening and shuttling kids here and there, and it's a lot. I can I can tell. I know that again from experience, personal and professional. I've heard it, I've seen it, and so I empathize with that. There's no way that I could sit here and tell you that what you're feeling is not real to you. It is. It's hard, but at the same time, I want to somehow bring you into the world of your husband to somehow see his heart because his heart is in the right place. And you've tried to get his attention and tried to communicate your needs, and he've heard it. And that only adds to his stress and his pressure. Again, I'm not excusing him because I believe he needs to have boundaries and he needs to set up parameters around what he does because it cannot all be just him because your needs and the children, they need his presence. You need his presence. And so what do you do? What do you do? So I said earlier that basically what drew you here is when I say, give me 15 minutes. And basically what I say, if I give me that 15 minutes and I'll show you how to strengthen your marriage. And so I'm going to share with you what I believe. And it's something you may have heard before, but I think in this context, it might make a difference. I hope it does, because I find that one of the main issues that I've seen in my professional work with couples, hundreds, I mean, literally hundreds of couples of all kinds of things they're presenting with, I can tell you that almost 90%, if not more, of what we begin to work on when a couple comes in and try to and working on their relationship, almost always they will say that our communication is our biggest issue. We just don't communicate. We just don't see eye to eye. And they would say that our communication needs work. However, there are other things as well as you would possibly agree with, because it's not just that. It's a sense of the affection and the sensitivity and uh, thinking without having you constantly reminding him of things, right? So be more proactive and be present. So there's a number of things that are at work, but what's presented initially is communication. And so one of the things I really stress is possibly what happened is sometimes people think they've communicated and really they really haven't, because communication is not just talking, as you know that. It's listening, it's a timing, it's what's said, it's how what's said is being said. So communication is a very, it's more than just I tell you what I want. It's really making certain that the message sent is a message received, and making certain that it's not a blame or putting the pressure that, putting the guilt on the other person, because that really takes away from communication. So what I suggest many times with couples is that you want to schedule a time or a place where you can have a conversation, a dialogue. And I use the word dialogue, and I chose that because sometimes people take one person might want to dominate the time, and so the other person feels as if, why do I even need to be here when I don't get a chance to share my heart and we don't feel like we've shared equally? You've dominated, you've not listened, you've deflected, you've blamed, all those things are taking place. So when I say is that the couples is have a time where you set up what I call a safe zone, a safe emotional space where you have set up some parameters as to what would happen in that space when you're talking and how that should go. And if you've been following me for some time, you may have heard me mention that before, because it's important that you share with each other and hear from each other. I think Proverbs 15:22 says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. So there needs to be that counseling that takes place between you and your husband, where you're sharing your ideas and you're not necessarily saying one is better than the other. Is basically talking it through and see what might be a way to work and navigate in this area. So both person, you and your husband, feel like you are, you've been heard, because that's one of the things that most times I find is the person feel unheard because nothing is changed, nothing is done differently, and they feel like, well, I feel like I've spoken to a wall because nothing has changed. But communication is really, and learning how to communicate really, one of the things I'll be teaching in my, happier marriage by design program is this very thing, is a true essence of communication. What does it take? How does that look? What does that look like? And how do you do that effectively? I think it's really important, but this is a very important piece. It's to learn how to communicate. The second thing is making certain that each person feels supported. That what is happening, that you as a wife feel like you're not your husband, dear husband, you're supporting her. And you also need to feel like she is supporting you, because one of the things that we sometimes do is is assume and make assumption about certain things, or we may misunderstand what's happening and didn't take time to check in and find out what the person is trying to say. We just form our own ideas and opinions and run off with that. But because many times it's not really what is said or what is done, it's really the interpretation of what the person who hears it or sees it is the label that they give to whatever is happening and the interpretation they place on what's happening. That's what they react to, because now they're have a belief system at play that now they behave around that. So I think it's important that we learn how to support each other, to show interest, because you're showing interest in his business and asking him about how things are going and an update. You want to show, you may not care about what he does because, I mean, you do care, but the ideas he's, working on, because it may not be your cup of tea. You know that he's working for the family, but you may not be in the nitty gritty and the micro aspect of things. You'd not necessarily care too much about that. You want to know, you want him to know that you want to support him and that you do, right? But you want him to also show interest and share your own aspirations, because you have other ideas and other things I believe that it's helpful. Helen Keller says, alone we can do so little. Together we can do so much. That's really true, right? The Bible says two are better than one in Ecclesiastes. And so that's really the essence of that as well. The third thing I want to suggest is prioritize quality time. Plan it, schedule it. And dear husband, when your wife and you agree on a date night, make certain that unless there's an emergency, you follow through, make it happen. You do that as if you had an appointment with some very important person or whatever it is, and you have to do everything to be at that appointment. That's how you should treat your date night, right? Because it's important. It's you communicating that this, at least this one thing, we're going to make sure it works the right way. Make sure it works the right way. This is where you're prioritizing those quality time. My wife and I have taken a while to get to a day that we choose each week where it's automatic. We don't have to even think about it anymore, because we know on Friday evening is our date evening. And so we schedule everything around that and making certain that on that evening, we clear everything. Now, have there been exceptions to that? Yes, but it's where we both agree and we both understand. But it's the exceptions, not the norm. The norm is we do date night no matter what. That's very important. You also want to be able to create a balanced life plan where you're setting realistic goals and expectations, because again, your husband wants to work on that. So obviously you want to make sure you take off as much as possible from his plate, right? And their husband, when she does that, make certain that you show your appreciation and gratitude, and make sure you reiterate that from time to time, because she is doing you a huge favor so you can get a chance to work on that. But also be realistic that you need to be there as well for her, right? So that you're sharing that for both people, for work and family time. So there might be a way to schedule that, and so you have a balanced life. You know, Jana Kingsford says, balance is not something you find, it's something you create. You have to create that. You and your husband, I would say co-create, right? You both, because if you're going to have a balanced life, you've heard this many times. People said, we need to find the balance. Well, I don't know if there's something you go look for. No, I think you create it. You're not going to find it, right? People will say work-life balance. Maybe it should be life-work balance, right? The life comes first, means the family and so on, and then work. But that's another story for another time. So that I mentioned the idea of a balanced life, whatever that looks like for you. And then here's one of the most important thing I've mentioned is pray. Pray together. Make prayer a daily habit to seek God's guidance. Remember Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Remember, God is there and wants you to reach out to him and invite him into the process because he's using this, what you're going through, for both of you. So you both can grow and both can be stretched and you both can learn patience and being kind and being gentle. You know, the whole Galatians um, chapter about the fruit of the Spirit, all right? Love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, long suffering, and so on, right? Those are very important aspect of what you want to be making certain that those things are carried out in your life. And God may be using this as a way. And that's why prayer does. Prayer connects you because when you're connected with God, the Holy Spirit can guide you and allow you to really go through this in a way that you could not on your own. You need supernatural strength. Both you and your husband needs that. So at times it's praying together, but at times praying for him as he prays for you and praying that God's peace would settle upon this you as a family. It's important that you do those things. So these are some suggestions I want to say. When I say give me 15 minutes, I know that maybe it's more or less, but the point is these things, if you implement them, I just share them with you very quickly, but you can go back and listen and take it one at a time and talk to your husband and sit down, pray over them and see what you might need to do. Maybe you might need to um, sign up and get on the wait list for my Happier Marriage by Design program that will go deeper in some of these things I've discussed. That may be something you may want to do. And if this is something you're interested in, you can go to buildyourhappiermarriage.com/waitlist, buildyourhappiermarriage.com/waitlist, and get on that because that would be a place where you can also learn what I'm suggested. And if and when you do that, well, when you do that, I'll also send you right away 11 rules for a happier marriage PDF, a one-page PDF that talks about 11 rules for a happier marriage. And this will help you actually see what, maybe you're missing some things in your marriage. Here are 3 of those rules that I have on that list is don't keep score, don't compare, be quick to forgive. And all these 3 have different paragraphs on each that explains what I mean by that and how that's done. So you can get that. Just again, go to buildyourhappiermarriage.com/wait list. And you can get on the wait list, but also get this free download. And I think that will be very helpful to you and be able to add to what you've heard today in this video. Now, I hope you resonated with this, and I would strongly urge you to subscribe to this channel and make sure that you don't miss any video that I put out because these are, I believe, are right where you live, where you need to be, right where you are. So I'd love for you to leave a comment in the comment section below, but make sure you subscribe to this channel and share this video with at least one other person. I would really appreciate that because that's what I think help you to the 15 minutes of time we spent together hopefully can be translated into 15 weeks of a better, 15 days better, 15 weeks better, 15 months better, 15 years better of marriage because of this one thing you have listened to today. I want to say thank you for taking the time to listen. I truly appreciate that. And I hope this was a blessing to you and your household. Now, I pray that God will bless you and make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May you know his peace, his joy, his love, and may your house, your home be filled with God's blessings and God's joy and peace and satisfaction. Now, let that become your household. And with that said, I want you to watch this other video right here and see how this also will help you. Thanks for being here and for watching. God bless you.